Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Today, this is the second read I'm doing today. Okay, FYI. So, if you missed this morning, I used the Palo Santo, but now I have my incense stick going. All right. And I am going to be using the Karmic deck for this reading. Okay. Um, No reason in particular, except that there's always karmic energy swirling around, right? I went out to the store this afternoon and everybody was pretty mellow, which was nice. You know, I mean, sometimes at the store, people, bumping into carts and reaching for the same thing. You know what I mean? Very smooth, very smooth. So, also, collective part of the message is that if you are planning something, to kind of go with the flow, okay? Um, and I'm not trying to say that the path of least resistance is the right path or the righteous path. But sometimes it can be the correct path, right? Sometimes we're like, oh, it can't be this easy. Oh, there has to be a catch. Well, maybe there is, but you don't know until you go through the steps, right? Um, so sometimes it's just the universe saying, opening the door for you, and it's all you have to do is walk through, right? You gotta walk in. hmm so King of Cups, you may have been feeling anxious, emotional. I was getting the anxiety thing earlier this morning in the read. So if you are suffering from some type of anxiety, you may want to talk to a professional about that, be it a regular doctor or like a counselor or somebody like that. Okay. So let's see what we need to know out of this message. All right. Aside from going with the flow, see what else we can expand upon. Okay. Four of Swords, getting some rest. Yeah. Sometimes when we're not in the right relationships, when it feels like we're swimming upstream, it feels like we're always exhausted and we're not getting our rest. So here, the Four of Swords reminding you that if you're in a relationship currently and this has been a fairly, war-free zone, you know what I mean? There's not been a lot of like I said, like you were able to kind of get to the day, to the store as if you were just kind of, you know what I mean, without bumping into anybody. If you're able to navigate your personal life in that manner, right? That's actually a healthy thing that allows you to get that rest, right? Okay. So, some people think of the Four of Swords too as being kind of a final ending. But what you're doing is you're tallying up for the day, and you're giving yourself a little pat on the back, and you're saying, you know what, I deserve that time to rejuvenate. Okay. I'm not on anybody else's time clock right now. I'm on my clock. And that's part of why you see the vampire here. Like, the vampire, he sleeps during the day. Maybe you're a shift worker, right? Like I mentioned earlier in the read, maybe this is the kickoff of your weekend, right? Like, yeah, I don't have to go into work tonight. Yay. Whereas everyone else is kind of like chill or whatever, and you're like, yay. Right? That's okay, right? And maybe you're happy about that too. Like we just had a new moon, good time for manifesting. A lot of people like to go out during a full moon. I am literally the opposite. I get the whole full moon thing, but I would rather be at home on the full moon, almost treating it like a new moon. That's my personal thing. So however you decide to rest, even if it looks a little peculiar to others, like Mr. Vampire here, um, you're just like, you're not going to be exhausted by other people anymore. And maybe you're like, look, I don't want to get all dressed up. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Maybe you're just taking a vacation of, um, too, from like social obligations, okay, where people always expect you to be somebody somewhere, maybe because of your status in the community, maybe because of the social groups you're a part of, like through your kids school or whatever it is. Yeah. you know you deserve a break from that as well. Hello, Pedro Quezada. Hola, ¿qué tal? That's what we're trying to figure out today, isn't it? So hopefully you have some rest and rejuvenation, Pedro, in your sights. 7 of Swords. Cannibal. So if there's somebody who doesn't want you to rest, okay, and I did not know this, but this is a common trait among people that exhibit narcissistic behavior, but people that will like poke you. Like say you're in the kitchen doing dishes and somebody comes up and they like, they're like, or whatever. Or I've seen these videos like I guess they're their husbands like shooting the wives with the Nerf guns and things like that would drive me bananas. I wouldn't get married to that person myself. But some people are like, oh, you're no fun. I was like, well, is he actually ever doing the dishes so that I can shoot him with Nerf guns, or is he just bananas? Right? And I ain't that bananas over a banana. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, are the dishes getting done or aren't they? Because who wants to act like a jackhole? Okay? So I actually read about that, and it's like, okay, so when they're like putting you off guard, that's like part of their game to get you distracted. It's sick. It's really sick, but that's what they enjoy. And it ends up cannibalizing your time, right? It cannibalizes your will to do other things, right? Because that person is so exhausting that you're like, look, I just need to, have you ever done that too? Like to avoid talking to somebody and like pretend you're already asleep. So, they think they're doing this to like gain some advantage, but really they're cannibalizing from their own success. And that's why it says cannibal on the bottom, because that's how they're acting. Because they don't know what's good for them. Their behavior causes types of consequences that would cause them to want to chew off their own arm. And I like having use of my appendages. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. And all these sheep here, and this one has his tongue hanging out like he's some idiot sheep. Like that's what this person thought they could do with you. They thought you're just a little idiot sheep person. Oh, I'll just play with the collective for a while. I'll never figure me out. Keep telling yourself that. That's how Delulu they are. That's how Delulu they are. Delulu. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. Yeah, right? Like, you ever seen a little cuckoo clock? Ah! Ah! Wake up! This person is Delulu. And like they thought you were just gonna go along with us and be like, okay. Yeah. sorry, the actor studio. Who was that? What's that guy's name? It's like James something. So it was so serious. I love films and all that stuff and acting and all that stuff. I could barely watch them because they were just like so serious. Maybe that's what I didn't really like. I ended up dropping out of my theater class, which I was kind of overloaded that semester anyway. It was fun, but you know what I mean. Sometimes it's a lot of pressure. Whereas this just feels natural. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, collective, is that a lot of these folks, the reason they're so exhausting and tiring is because they are putting on an act. It's an act. Right? Mhm. You know, it's like a little kid throwing a tantrum here, and you're just like, okay. Yeah, there's no life. Right? Like, none of the moms forgot. None of the moms, even the bad moms, understand this shit because the bad moms are the ones out there throwing themselves around, acting the loose, acting the loose. Somebody help me! Somebody save me! Right? So that they can literally turn you into a vampire that you're so exhausted because they've drained you of all your resources. Yeah. Male and female out there doing that these days. Oh, yes. All right. Better hang on to that dress, honey, because you ain't getting another one after this. Okay? Unless you walk your happy little ass down to TJ Maxx or whatever you got in your town, buy with your own money. This time, right? This time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go find Daddy Warbucks at the end of your tip jar. You can smile, can't you? Right? It's like they want you to accept this fakeness, but they won't turn around and do it for like a real job. But they'll con you. Right? It's one dude I dated. He was behind on his child support payments. I was and he didn't even want to open the mail. I was like, you got to open this mail. He's like, oh, the state will take care of it. I'm like, what? You know, just complete denial. You know, is that then when I really realized it's like this person's not really actively seeking to fix. You know, they're the one that cartoon character likes to bury their head in the sand and act like everything's fine, right? But you're gonna run out of road, you're gonna run out of gas, right? Running around putting on an act of things that aren't real. Again, cannibalizing the current activity. You know, after a while, it's like no. By then, it's like nobody cares that you saved so and so from that little train, okay? Because all the other, oh well, they weren't the only one there that day. Somebody else surely would have pulled that kid off, you know, because some of this other stuff that they got going on, it's just, you know, it's eats up the profits, right? So what they've been doing to actually make the money, you might want to be asking. I was just down on vacation in a nice little tropical locale by myself, and I happen to, you know, overhear these gals on their, you know, vacation lunch and having drinks and talking about their, you know, dating lives. And one of them was like, yeah, we never talk about his work. I mean, I don't know what he does. Like, you're not the least bit curious about what the man you're dating does for a living? Especially if you're having sex together, right? If you're being intimate. Again, seems a little cannibalistic in nature, right? Happy birthday coming up, Taurus. Yes, the reading earlier today, I pulled the Hierophant, so you may want to go back and check out that reading. Now, ooh, the Justice card, Libra, fairness, fairness, yeah. Um, this is the kind of thing where, like, you might be sitting it out and somebody else is coming around being like, no, okay, all right. Famous example, Judy Garland, the Judy Garland show, right? And they wanted her to do this and that and this and that. After a while, it became too much, right? Whereas she wanted to sit it out, right? And they wanted to keep pushing, but what was happening? It was cannibalizing the activity of the program. Okay, so instead of some Judy Garland, you got none, right? So sometimes the justice we seek is the peace, right? And honoring, say, the limits of our human bodies. You know, it's like last time I checked, my body is probably not going to be able to stand up to a full crucifixion. So if you can back the fuck off, right, of this human over here, right, then maybe justice might actually get served, right? Isn't that part of what Christ taught us? You know? Sometimes salvation does not come at the hands of man, does it? So we should be very happy and grateful for the justice we do receive while we are here witnessing it on earth. Right? Twice on my airport trip. Okay. One was you hear about these things, right? And you think like, oh, I'll never see, like, you know, or you see it like in a movie or TV episode or something. I got to the airport super early because I had a rental car and I just wanted to be, you know, make sure that was all checked back in and you know what I mean? Like all the, nobody, you know, got all my stuff out of there. So I was just casually strolling around the airport for quite a while. And I passed by the store like many times, right? And then one of the last times that I passed by the store while I was in the airport, I saw an envelope just kind of like laying on top. It was like, you know, a rack of those neck pillows, you know, for sale. And then it was like, you know, there was some thing, you know, sitting on top of one. And it's like, it doesn't look like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like part of the display. You could tell there was a, so I got a little closer and it's like, oh my, and you know, you're thinking, it's like, is this one of those things? You know what I mean? Like, is this one of those things? So I got a little closer and I didn't pick it up, but I like saw like it had handwritten and it was something like, you know, the Lord blessed me to leave, blah, 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 or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, this is one of those things. You know, like there's probably something nice inside for whoever needs to receive that, right? So, you know, I'm just like waiting for, you know, and I wasn't in the market to buy a neck pillow or anything. And I look over and there was a lady who was working the shop and I was like, hey, is this, you know, hey, come look at this, you know, because she was like, you know, organizing stuff on the storefront or whatever. So, you know, I don't know what was inside. Maybe it was a bunch of scratch off lottery tickets. I have no idea. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe it was $1,000. I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it was like, you hear about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? You hear about that kind of stuff and it's like, oh, right? So that was one. Okay. And then two, so I think this was after even. Okay. Anyway, I was randomly sitting, in the airport. I wasn't even sitting waiting in my section. I was just, you know what I mean? Because it was kind of busy down there. It's like, I got several hours, kind of stretch out in this area over here. And some other people came up, and finally somebody was gone, and I look over and I was like, I noticed there was their passport sitting there. And the airport we were in was an international, like there's international flights going in and out of this airport. I'm like, oh, they're probably gonna miss that, right? So I kind of started looking. I didn't see. It's like all of a sudden he was just gone to me, right? So I just figured, oh, we'll just get it to the gate agent. I kind of looked. The guy across from me was like, he kind of knew who I was talking about. So when I picked it up, I was kind of like talking to him, and he ended up taking it, and he went up to the gate, and then as he was looking around, he spotted the guy and then like ran it down and like got him his passport back, which I'm sure he would have got it to him eventually, but it was nice that we were able to get it back to him, in a timely manner without causing him too much stress from losing such an important document, right? And also not some little thief running off with it to like sell it off somewhere. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that was my kind of two little happy travel tales that I witnessed while I was in the airport. And they say traveling isn't fun. It's kind of like when I was traveling to where I was at, and I was talking to a guy that was local, that was on the plane there, and I was like, so what do you think? As a touristy, he's like, it's what you make of it, right? And that's kind of should be anything in life, right? Having a positive attitude, outlook, the correct mindset. Also knowing, like the reading earlier, like when to say when. And, like with the same with the Judy Garland thing. It's like, no, I don't want to be recording three nights a week in the studio. You know what I mean? By that time in her career, she didn't want to be doing some of that stuff anyway, right? Page of Wands, Necromancer. So, collective, there could be somebody who's trying to regurgitate the past, kind of like, we're getting the band back together and it's gonna be great this time and blah blah blah. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, no 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 no. And it's like they're hyping it all up with this page energy, but it's like it's trying to revive something that's long gone. Okay, so. And that's kind of what the necromancer is. It's, somebody in love with something that's just, doesn't even exist anymore, right? Okay. So for a lot of you collective, if this is somebody that you worked with previously, that you had some kind of relationship or family tie to, soul tie, whatever it is, I don't feel like you feel that way. You don't feel that obligation or guilt or anything like that. You feel very free, like to walk away. So again, some of the anxiety you could be sensing, especially if you are empathic, is the fact that other people are realizing that it doesn't matter what they say to you, like it's going to be like a done and over deal. You know what I mean? Like, yep, that's done. So moving on, right? We all moved on, right? Good for us. Wow. This wanted to come out earlier. The Two of Pentacles. So you could be, tempted with some offers of people wanting, again, like I said, to kind of regurgitate the past, where collective, where you have left the past is part of your justice. And you did that because you recognized people were cannibalizing the system, creating a no-win situation. Right? It's like we want to be on the win-win operation. We don't want to be on the no-win, the negative. Okay. Somebody said something about Nirvana. I mean, there's that song called Negative Creep, right? Um it's like at a certain point, yeah, it's like we call it, we move forward, and it's like no amount of magic is going to bring back something that was DOA, right? Okay. Especially collective if this was a lot of drama that just caused you to kind of want to just not deal, you know, again, kind of the walking away energy. Okay, so whatever you're aiming at for now is what you need to continue to focus on. So again, this reminds me of when I've been out before, and I was casually introduced to somebody, and then I was looking down my phone, and they were like trying to talk to me, but I was like looking for something, and they're like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey," and it's like I'm busy doing something. You know what I mean? Their amount of awareness, you know what I'm saying? That's like the equivalent of waving your money at the bartender. Elementary, my dear Watson, right? Like if I wave my money around, it'll make me look important or important, right? An important taint. Is that what they think? Right? And some of these people don't even wash themselves, right? And then they're strutting around acting like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is real life, folks. I know. It's bizarre, right? And then they want to point and say, "Oh, you're crazy." No. No. You're crazy for not washing your ass, sir or ma'am. Like, yeah, I go into the store in my sweats on a Sunday, but have I showered today? Yes, I did. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, I ain't walking these places reeking of whatever some of these folks be getting into. And you're like, you want to revive what? Because right now, your ass smells rancid as fuck. Like somebody crawled up and died in there, and we ain't romancing none of that. Like I said, some folks think an awful lot of themselves. Mm-hmm. And that just shows you how little they think of other people, including you. Right? No matter how much you want for them to do something else, the proof's in the pudding at the end of the day. Right? You know? Actions do speak louder than words at a certain point, right? Okay. 8 of Wands, yeah. Testify. I think what's happening, collective, is every time you start getting a confirmation that's starting to link up and align with your goals, it's like you're getting another one and another one, and it's like a set of Legos, and it's just right. And it's like you're seeing your dreams actually ascend and come up, even though there's all these little sneaky energies out here, but it's like now that you're recognizing that that one's a snake and that one's a snake, then it's like it's easier to hop along in the trail, right? And to like stand on one foot right over here and like, come on and kick your ass if I have to, right? Seven of Wands. So, collective, you may be staying quiet currently about what your plans are, um, how you plan to react or not react to, whatever these building blocks are, right? And kind of in the meantime, this person's just kind of being, they're dancing around the fence of your heart, right? That was closed off to them a long time ago, right? Um, it's like this isn't affecting you right now. So part of this rest, I feel like you're actually getting the rest that's been needed is one thing, collective. Here, this inquisitor, this person was always on you about like what was next for you, and they wanted to be a part of it, right? And it being the wheel, they wanted you strapped on that wheel, okay, indefinitely, so they can just continue to take and take and take and take until the next pass go and take and take and take and they didn't care what actually happens to you. That's why they showed up here as the cannibal with the Seven of Swords. If you don't replenish, if you don't reseed, if you don't re-up, and then there's just the draining taking energy. Yeah, collective, you're like, you might be a glutton for punishment, but not like that. Like you do know how to stand up for something here, Queen of Pentacles. You know, this house is not built of straw, right? Ooh, okay. Where are we at here? 33. I'm gonna get you guys some romance angels. Or, you know what? I'm gonna grab the light worker. Let me grab the light workers real quick. Here is the light worker deck. So again, you might be tapping into this and just kind of like be sensitive to it. Like you're being sensitive to it, but it's not like dragging you in. It's just kind of like one of those, like, could even be like, you're just driving down the road and randomly you're like, why am I thinking about such and such? Like, I haven't thought about that in ages, right? That happened to me the other day, and then like I ran into the person, like so random. Because like they don't even live here anymore, I don't think. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like, and the fact that I was just on vacation anyway, so you know what I mean? Just so random to bump into people like that. But their journey may cross your path, but that doesn't mean you're on the same path, right? Like there's intersections in life, right? But that doesn't mean you stay at the intersection. What do you do when you're driving, right? You look around and who's turning, and then you continue on, wherever you're going to. Okay, it's very simple. Very simple when you think of it that way. Hello, Reese. Take a break of life's work and not a season. Get off the treadmill. Yeah, just like Judy did, And sometimes your decisions are not going to be popular with everybody, but they still have to be in alignment with you and your goals, right? Your abilities, your schedule. Dance with life. Do something to change your energy. Maybe you do need to burn some incense, some Palo Santo. Maybe you need to get outside and move. Maybe you need to go and sign up, like through your local community district. Like, go sign up for a random dance class. Go sign up for some kind of crafting group craft project or something. Through your local art center. Like whatever it is. Okay. Allow yourself to get unstuck from people, places, and things that you thought would have, like, maybe a lasting control on you because of how it was cannibalizing you. Okay. At one point in time, but since you're getting the justice now, it's like now that you know how to lean back into yourself, it's kind of like that. Now you're playing tug of war with the energy, but the justice is on your side, where you're going to win that battle. And it could be almost like a David and Goliath type thing. Where it's like, look, I'm only one person, blah blah blah. But we all know what happens when you have momentum on your side. You can get a victory. The same as, like I was talking about earlier, sometimes, the path of least resistance, just walking through those doors, giving things a shot and opportunity may be actually the correct path to go. Right. A lot of people want to popularize, struggle love and blah blah. I'm not saying life is without challenges, but is that supposed to be your daily in and out life? Ask yourself that question. Is that how you want to live? If it's not, then start thinking, start getting that mindset different, right? The age of light, you've been training for this for lifetimes. Okay. So, like what I was saying earlier with the 8 of Wands, it's just gonna start like building up, like all of a sudden, right? And then it's gonna look like, oh, did Publishers Clearinghouse visit you overnight? Well, not exactly, but I did have this saved away for a rainy day, and I don't have a car payment right now, and you know what I mean? Like whatever, some of those things where you start realizing what's important and what you value, okay? And then you start coming into yourself and saying, okay, this is how I see myself. This is how I see myself, like as if you are carved, you're that carving in the marble and you're literally stepping out from it, from the rock. Okay. So, that vision of you has always been there, right? Don't let yourself think that for some reason, because, well, I'm not supposed to be able to get that yet because, I haven't finished my schooling yet, or I haven't met the right soulmate yet, or I haven't lost that last 20 pounds yet, or I haven't done this yet, I haven't done this for you. Guess what? You still have to do work along the way until you get to all of those goals. And all of that makes up that prism of progress, that prism of light. it starts out as that, this little light of mine, that tiny little, almost, can be a casualty flame into this that's like a spear of like crystal rock that is like driving the light forward like the front of a freaking train. The cow plow or whatever, like that. Okay? That's what happens when you start believing in yourself. When you start believing in yourself, you're no longer that little candle in the wind that uh, I don't know if I don't know if I right? I'm not saying that to take away from people that have come before us. What I'm saying is that when you're given the ability and the recognition to see that, it's like, wow. Well, if my foundation, right, is so much wider, right, I should be able to like really drive it on home, right? So, it's not only your lifetime, it's your ancestral lifetimes, it's everybody who's you've looked up to lifetimes, every book you've read lifetimes. All right? You're not really threading the needle anymore. They're trying to thread you. You know. And the reason they want to thread you is they want you to get you back in that quilt of knowledge. I talked about the quilt earlier, how it can be enmeshment. And then you're like, oh man, how did we end up here? Because where this is not fun right now. Right? Yeah, and some of that stems from codependency. Let's do one more here. Looks like it might storm here again soon. I don't know. Awful windy outside. Priestess, how are you being called to step up and lead? Okay, the high priest was in my reading from this morning, and now we have the priestess. So, as well as, masculine energies, you may be a feminine energy, and maybe, you were told growing up, like, oh, well, women can't do that in the church, or blah, 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 or working with cards is against God, and blah, 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 therefore you're not a priestess, or you didn't go to this seminary, and blah, 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 therefore you don't, like, somebody always has a little poll tax to make up, don't they? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's some like agnostic and atheist people I know that know the Bible better than some Christians out there. Why? Because they've been arguing on it their entire lives. They're very knowledgeable people. When you're a knowledgeable person and you choose to dedicate part of your life to helping others, that makes you a priestess. Let me be the one to help you get that confirmation out there, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, think about all the institutions in the history of institutions that, don't sometimes accept people that don't look exactly like them, especially if they are non-white, and especially if they're non-male. Okay? So you might already be doing this, right? How you choose to call yourself, how you choose to label yourself, right? But it is this energy of this priestess where you are kind of being nominated in a way to step up and lead, right? Personally, I like it to I liken it to like classroom type work, except we're, you know, working with adults here, or people that are supposed to be acting like adults anyway, right? And we all need our own personal reminders of that as well, you know. Um, like when I was out earlier, you know, and it was like, how are people gonna be? You know what I mean? Everyone was cool and chill, right? You know, sometimes if you go looking for that argument, you're gonna find it, right? You go looking for the problem, you're gonna find it. So, yeah, think about what is justified and what those Valkyrie angels would be saying to you about that. All right, if they found you worried about the direction that you are headed. All right, especially from a creative standpoint. Okay. I'm not going to say too much more about this, but just understand that it will also be happening quickly. Okay, it's going to be a swift battle that's already been won, decided, and one that's laying the groundwork for you to continue on that track. All right, that you have dedicated your life to so far and have been, you know, tirelessly in some cases working at this. All right. And that's again why, you know, it's a reminder. You know, and that's the thing too, is because, you know, a lot of these spongy type people, these stage 5 clingers, right? They want to hang on to hardworking people, right? And you have to allow yourself that break, right? Oh, I can't rest. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. Right? Allowing yourself that rest time so you don't cannibalize your next project. So you don't show up sick on day one. So you don't show up all tired and stressed out, so worried about X, Y, and Z. Right? All right. That's all I have for you guys. Please do like the video or subscribe. Remember, you do not have to be a subscriber in order to like the video. Also, thank you for being kind to others in the chat today. If you would like to review this message, you can do so on the community tab where I will post it after I close out the stream. So until next time, please do manifest wisely. Bye bye.